Hi, I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. I have some of my honey in here and some honey from other customers to be extracted. Lots of it needing to be done. Some of it I've had in here warming up overnight. I've got a heater going. My deep soup is done. They get priority as they've got pollen in and things. I don't want the any small hive beetles to get active in there, so that gets extracted right away. And a few mediums and shallow soup is here. My uncapping plane getting a bit hot now, and putting it into the extractor. So we'll see if we can get some decent shots here. Big change this year in terms of having such a good honey flow and keeping the supers on relatively long. They got really filled up and really capped. So very often you can get honey that's not capped but still perfectly cured, less than 18.5% water. But what we've got this year is lots of capped honey, which you know is cured. It's also a little easier to balance the extractor as well, because most of them are full. So it's important when you're putting them in the extractor that you put, if you've got a light frame, you put it opposite another light frame. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. So we have a big wax harvest this year as well, because so much of it's capped. So my people that make candles and salves and that sort of thing and buy wax from me are going to be very happy to have got plenty of wax this year. And I'll have lots of made up comb next spring as well, because all this comb has been drawn out well this year, as opposed to only being partially drawn out. Not to mention all the combs I've been leaving on the colonies over the winter time. So I've got all that built, and then all this stuff that I'm going to empty. Very satisfying uncapping nicely drawn out combs like this. Combs that have had brood in them, on the other hand, can be a challenge. They're a real pain to get uncapped sometimes, because the cappings there are very stuck to the walls, and the walls can be full of leathery brood casings. Much easier to extract frames that have only had honey in them, with just a little bit of brood. Normally I've got the radio blaring on and the coming through, but I'm not sure where I stand regarding copyright and that sort of thing, whether my videos will be turned down because I've got a song that I haven't paid commission for. I have to look to see how much of a song you can play before it says copyright infringement or something, if any. And if I find that out, then maybe there'll be some music on some of the videos as well. Last night was very interesting. It was the October 10th, and we had the Northern Lights last night. And spectacular display. Maybe I can put some pictures of that on here as well, but I tried taking a few pictures in the yard. Actually, the lights were really, really good at about 7:15, 7:30. By the time I got back to the house with one of the thios back there, I tried to take some pictures there, but it had gone down to being not as special, so you can just about see the bees, and the sky wasn't as spectacular as it was for about half an hour earlier on. So 65 years old, and it's the first time I've seen a really good display of the Northern Lights. I've only seen it once before, knowingly, when fishing on the Northumberland coast in England at night. But then it was only just like pillars of white. So it wasn't anything, it was still special, but it wasn't anything like last night. Last night was just unbelievable. So I'd say I'm roughly halfway through my honey harvest, extracting now. It's, again, compared to the number of hives I've got, it's not that big a harvest, but for me it's a big harvest because normally we don't get much of a full honey flow, and so I'm not able to take advantage of the spring flow because I make all those nukes. But for a nice change, I'm harvesting a few thousand pounds of honey. Which is nice. Never easy to get them in. Especially the last of deep frames. Now, this extractor will hold 10 deep frames, but in addition to that, it will hold another 10 shallower frames, whether that's mediums or shallows. So I've got my 10 in, but I've got a little space there to put my shallower ones in. So I'll do some of those. In the meantime, I'll put the camera over here. Sticky hands. So I'll have to pardon my back. Another thing about the crop this year is that all the frames have been held. There's lots of bridging comb, lots of extra stuff holding, lots of propless holding frames in place. Lots of cleaning, tidying up to do on the frames. But all of that goes to making life easier next year as well. cappings here are draining down, over down into that container and out here into the bucket. I pass my honey through a 600 micron sieve. Just a bit. Just doing this, it beats lifting up all those heavy supers and that sort of thing. Those deep ones, they weigh about 80 pounds overall, maybe more, maybe 90. Got about 60 plus pounds of honey in them. These mediums typically probably weigh 50 pounds. They contain about 35 pounds of honey, give or take a few. Even the shallows have about 25 pounds of honey. They'll still weigh a good deal. Depends on the wood they're made from and how thick it is and how weathered it is. The edge. Cat, cat, cat. With this honey. Beautiful light honey too. Two to go. Of course, generally my honey supers only have 9 frames in. I better go into the next box. I'll start to unplug this because it needs to cool down. Don't unplug it before my last frame, it'll be smoking for the next 10 minutes. But this will cool it down a bit, cutting through all that cooler honey. Well, the capping flame won't smoke in the room, fill the room up with smoke. Okay, get my hands a rinse. And we will clean the extractor a bit. I'm going to have to hold that down. Honey thrown on it. This will be the test as to whether or not the extractor is well balanced. Now I just check, see all the frames are in place right. There's none leaning to one side or anything. They look okay, these ones are a little wobbly, so I might have to move things around partway through. Going and turn on. Starting to move a bit. around. While we fast forward through some of this. Because of the design of this thing down here, it doesn't stick out far enough. So I have to wait until the extractor stopped and then tip it forward. I think it's designed like that in order to stop it getting knocked and broken. But if it stuck out a bit further, I could have the bucket filling up while we do this, which would be an improvement because earlier this week I was extracting frames that came out so full of honey. The honey had filled up the extractor to the point at which the bottom of this frame was actually trying to cut through the honey, and everything started to grind to a halt because it was trying to spin this at this speed through honey. No possible way it was going to burn everything out. So everything was starting to slip. Fortunately, we spotted that just in time. We didn't do any damage, but that shouldn't be possible. But given what we've got, we just have to work with it and be careful. So it's able to be left on its own now. So out of these cappings, this was yesterday afternoon's cappings removed. And what I've currently got about a dozen buckets like that. I'll get about a dozen more, containing roughly 10-15 pounds of honey and about 5 to 10 pounds of wax in each one. And so they will go into the melter, which I've done other videos, but we'll be doing another one shortly. There's honey that's just been done recently. It is a messy, messy process. Here and they'll go back and cleaned by the bees. There's a lovely breeze coming off this, making the room smell even more of honey than it does normally. How much honey is left in the frames, as we haven't stopped it or fast forwarded at the moment. You can actually see what in real time what it's like. So this is virtually empty. Feels nice and light. This one's heavier. You can actually see lots of bubbles still in there, some honey still in the frames. And sometimes that's because a frame can either sit slightly to one side or the other. Get that back in place. Yeah, there's a bit of weight in them still, probably not another couple of minutes. mesmerizing. Hypnotic wheel. This extractor broke down at the very end of last season. Unfortunately, a friend came around and some of the bearings started to go in this setup, which that's a diagram of, and a couple of bearings needed replacing. So everything's working much better. It's had a few issues in the meantime with things seizing up a little, but otherwise it's a great workhorse. Done a great job for me over the years, and I got it second hand as well, so it was probably 10 years old when I got it. That's why this lid is missing. Normally there's one of these covers. People bringing it round, that cover blew off the back of their truck, so I've only got one of the two covers. We'll just spin this for one more minute and then we're going to take everything out and start tipping out the honey. In the meantime, I will get ready. Set this up. Always have sticky hands. Get a lot of warm water. Rinsing out a couple of buckets. Okay, so I've got 600 micron mesh, another 5-gallon bucket ready to go here. And this will be ready now. So we'll take out what we can. Medium frames to start with, nice and empty. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, a frame that's only ever had honey in it looks like this. A frame that has once had brood in it and then honey looks like this, because every time larvae are reared in the cell, it stains the cell one shade darker brown. So beginners are sometimes concerned because they find that their frames are suddenly gone all brown and black and they don't understand why, and they start throwing them away and they go, my God, don't throw those away, they just had larvae grown in them. So they're perfectly good to use. deeps. Take out just a tiny bit left behind. But when I put that back on the hive, they're gonna clean that right up. Put it back on just to get them cleared up very quickly. And within a day or so, it'll be entirely dry. These frames will be ready for winter storage. This year, I'm using paramoth crystals. Trying that out. I've used the bacteria which eats up wax moth larvae, but this year I'm doing the paramoth. See how that goes, because I've never tried that. My business partner Amy's used that before quite successfully. And the last two. Red sands again. Now, see inside here, that is nearly full of honey. It's only half an inch from those bars at the bottom. And that's the thing that was trying to work its way through. Okay, so what I have to do now is tip this back. I'm going to tip this back here, and I'll put a little can underneath it to hold it in place. Now, keep it zoomed down right now. Pull this back. Okay. So you can see it's now tipped forward, and we're going to open it up. While we're at it, I will use my refractometer, put a drop of honey on there, and look in the light. .8, which is nice, pretty dry. Not surprising as it's all cured honey. So as you can see, there's lots of bits of wax and that sort of thing. This is why we filter it to some degree, because you don't want that in the honey. So these sieves will take care of that. What I'll do is stop it for a second. Out of the way. Another bucket in its place. And by the time that's nearing full, this will be drained down enough. And in the meantime, this will just keep on going for quite some time. It'll drain faster if I just push these piles over to one side. Beautiful light beeswax here. You can see there's still lots of honey in it. So in fact, just from that, we're probably going to get another 10 pounds of honey out of those cappings. So what I'll do now is continue to empty that and work my way through about another 50 or 60 supers. I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. See you next time.